Got lost in my own backyard. And we are back. So it's been a little while since I uploaded any videos. Not because I've run out of projects, but rather I've had a few that I've either abandoned or put on the back burner, such as the inlay on the door to the head. I wanted to redo it with this other inlay from this wall hanging that I had, but decided against that. The other project was the cockpit floor. I want to put in a quick release latches like these, but then decided that the ones that I have on hand are probably not the best, so I'm going to put that one on the back burner. But for now, I'm concentrating on stanchions. And as is common on many boats, there are these little plastic grommets or ferrules that are put into the stanchion itself to keep chafe from happening on lifelines, because it leaves a sharp edge when these come out. And I've tried several different ways to replace these. I found little plastic pieces, I've used hoses, but nothing really lasted, at least not with any sort of permanence. Until now, I did find something, and you can see here on the top one how that has actually a metal piece. Take this out. It actually looks like it's part of the stanchion itself, because it gives it kind of a solid appearance. So I'm going to go over how I did that. Also, you'll notice if you've seen my past videos, I had upgraded to uncoated lifelines, but ended up putting these old ones back in for now because the uncoated ones were a little bit thin, but I'll go over that in another video. And getting started now. So here you can see how these little plastic pieces have come out, and it leaves kind of that edge, which I'd like to fill. So I have some 3/8 diameter stainless tubing. It's thin wall, 0.5 millimeter thick wall, and I tried various ways to get that in there and expand the ends. I have a tubing flare kit, but that would only work on one end. And here I've tried here's a few failures. I expanded one end and I tried hammering it down, and various ways. So none of these worked. So what I found after doing some creative Googling is someone had some limited success with some 1/4 inch sockets, but I had to take this a few steps further in order for it to work properly, and that is starting out with some small ones and then moving up to some larger ones, and then doing a little bit of tapping with a hammer to really flatten it out, and then deburring and polishing and such, and I'll demonstrate that here. Okay, so first step is to cut this tubing a little bit longer than the openings. I just mark it off. And used just a regular tubing cutter for a nice straight cut. And now for the fun part. So I've got that inserted in there. And I'm going to put one in each end. These are the two smallest ones I have. This one's 4 millimeters, and this one is 5/32. And then put them in the vise and see how that goes. Now you can see how those two ends have expanded a little bit. Not enough to hold it in there. But the next step is to move to larger ones. So this one is 6 millimeters and what is this one? 7/32. And because one of the sockets gets stuck, I have to kind of just lever it off here. So I got a nice flared edge on both sides. But next is to take a small hammer, well, I guess a big hammer would work too, and just kind of tap the edges to flare it out even more. And that seems to do the trick. Don't know how well the video is picking this up, but you can see that it's flared. So next I'm going to just deburr with a file and a Dremel tool. And now that's left a pretty even edge. I mean, it's a little rough from filing and Dremel. But next will be to, right here, polish this and then buff. And now that's all polished and buffed, and it looks really nice. Another plus for that Harbor Freight polishing kit. So I think this is pretty good now and ready to go. Actually, it looks like a solid piece. I'm actually tempted to just take out the other ones, the plastic ones, but even though they're in good shape, but maybe not. Because this does come out good. And finally, I've got 4 of them done. So the 2 aft ones only on the top, as well as the 2 forward ones only on the top as well. The middle, or rather the bottom ones, are all fine for now. I will note that the midship ones are unnecessary to do this modification. The top is actually solid, and then the bottom actually has a ferrule similar to what I made. So I'm happy with the way this turned out. And the next project also concerns the stanchions, and that is a holder for my diesel jerry cans as well as my extra water jerry cans. So on this particular boat, the shrouds, or at least the chain plates for the shrouds, are actually spaced apart perfectly for 2 jerry cans. So originally I would tie them to here, but then they kind of go flopping around whenever I'm heeled. But then there's also the risk, these are kind of close to the shrouds. It could put pressure on them. Probably not, but what I want to do is put a board here and then devise some system to tie them to that. There's always the possibility that wave can hit these and kind of bend the stanchions, but I think that's pretty low risk because the bottom won't be tied, so they'll be able to kind of give a little bit. So I'm going to give that a go. And I'm starting with some 8-foot 1x4s. And I selected the ones that had a little bit of a bow in them, or at least as much as I could find. But what I've done is I put some weight on it, these 2 gas cans, and left it on there to kind of give it a little bend. It rained yesterday, so it should put a little bit more bend in it. So first step will be to cut these down to 6 feet. And now you can see why I put a little bow on them. They are to follow the curvature of the top of the deck. So I'm going to attach them to the stanchions here, like that, with a U-bolt, probably in this direction. Okay, so easy enough. I've got the U-bolts on there. This one's a little long, so... And now that is complete. So this was relatively easy. I mean, it's just a board and some U-bolts, right? But the slightly more complicated part will be attaching the jerry cans to this. And I say it's more complicated because I could just as easily use some line or some rope, put them on there. But what I really need is something that's quick release, and not something, or rather something that my wife can take care of without any specialized knots. So I think I'm going to make a harness. And by harness, all I meant was actually a strap that can be tightened and quickly unbuckled. And I found that the best way to do this is just loop it around the handle twice, come down around the board for both sides, and then just buckle it in the front like that is. And now we're in good shape and all set on both sides. Did one on this side too. And they are very secure, but a little bit of play in case of some wave action. But I'm happy with the way this turned out, and it's looking good.